Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC recap of this week. We just finished the second week of the LEC Spring Split, so let's go over all the matches that were played and highlight some interesting moments and discuss the matches. We kicked off the weekend with XL versus Mad Lions, and Elyoya whipped out the Ivern jungle here. Obviously, this is the first appearance after we saw Ivern 2 times already in the top lane, but now in the jungle. And the match went pretty well in Mad Lions' favor. They got 2 early kills because Torre on XL overstepped a few times. And you could see that Mad Lions was just feeling more comfortable than they had in their matches last week. But XL did strike back, and after they got 4 kills, they got also a solo kill with Chocolate killing Humanoid in the mid lane. That's a bit of a rivalry, so that was very interesting. And after this, you could see that XL was trying to be more proactive. However, that's kind of where it ended for them, because Mad Lions in team fights was just simply better than XL. Mad Lions had better positioning around the objectives. They were very aggressive with their engages. And what also did help is that Mega Shields were landed on Armwood, who had like the Orianna shield on him, and the Ivern, and with the Moonstone Staff of Flowing Water build, it did help a lot to keep Armwood alive, and he just pressed Gore Drinker, and that's kind of how it ended for XL there. Then the second match, we had Schalke 04 versus SK Gaming, and SK Gaming had an interesting pick. They had a Dr. Mundo in the jungle. That said, though, Schalke 04 did get a few early kills very early on. They got Blue in the mid lane, caught him off guard as a mid laner for SK Gaming. It did slow a bit down after this. There were objective trades, and SK Gaming started to look stronger over the course of the matches. They were getting 2 Drakes. They had a 3rd Drake they also secured. This is where the Dr. Mundo really came into the highlights, so let's take a look at the Doctor.
Tinks is here. Squire's Boom will spot out a few. Broken Blade working his way up. Treats is going to try and act as a bodyguard. Keep Broken Blade away. Of course, they played on TSM together, and Broken Blade has been caught out. Treats flashes forward for the stun from the E-Hero's entrance. Now going to put limit in all kinds of hurt because he's surrounded by 4 members of SK. Gideus tries to jump onto Jezu, but Gideus is the one who's targeted down by SK. Fates call in from Treats. That's another. Tinks gets the shutdown on Gideus, and now this Ocean Dragon is available. Sharima slide in Schalke. Limit gets the kill on Blue, but there's an answer, and Tinks is still chasing. It's going to be a 4-for-1 in favor of SK. A quadra kill for the Doctor in the jungle.
However, this game was far from over. Even though SK had 3 Drakes, they didn't really manage to translate this into getting turrets from Schalke 04. Schalke 04, on the other hand, did manage to take down turrets from SK Gaming, and this is where you could see that Schalke 04 was slowly turning the game back into their favor. They won the next Drake fight, they got a Baron, and they really pushed back hard against SK. And SK, once again, even though they had 3 Drakes, much like they did have last week, they didn't really manage to do anything on the map. It's just kind of the same how it went against Rogue in that sense. Obviously, there are different reasons for it, I think, where the draft for SK Gaming was just not really good. You could see the Mundo just struggling overall, even though he had that one highlight moment I showed earlier. So, in the end, Schalke did wipe the floor with SK Gaming and picked up their win. Then we had G2 versus Astralis, and I think that many people, myself included, expected this to be a full-out stomp from G2, and because they're just simply the best team in Europe overall, right? And Astralis wasn't really considered highly, especially after their performance last weekend, where they performed just incredibly poorly. But they actually did pretty decently. The early game went pretty evenly for overall. G2 did have a moment where it seemed like they pulled the trigger and just decided to roll over Astralis. But I have to say that Astralis held on impressively. Astralis, when G2 overstepped, did recognize it and did try to engage and win the team fights. They even won some of the team fights, which was very promising for them. So if you overall compare their performance against G2 to the performance of last week, I think that they definitely showed massive signs of improvement. Still, even though G2 was clowning a few times, it's still G2 and they are just stronger, so they won that game. Then we had Rogue versus Misfits, which was a much anticipated match by many people, because Rogue obviously did start off strongly with a 3-0 start, and Misfits had a 2-1 start, and did also look very impressive. And you could see that Misfits was full in on aggression, but controlled aggression. They got a few early kills, and you could see that their early game was really on point and really tried to drive Rogue into a corner. That said, Rogue obviously is a team with perhaps the best macro game in the LEC at the moment. They managed to apply pressure at several points in the map, just trying to push against those towers of Misfits, try to make it impossible for Misfits to roam together and find the aggression and find those picks. But it was overall still a very skirmish heavy game, which was very exciting. Misfits did not shy away. They kept fighting. Rogue did play slightly better, but Misfits could have won this game. And a great fight for Misfits, as an example, then, is a Baron fight that happened around 29 minutes into the game.
In the area, Syndra can contest. It's still risky, even with a smite in the area.
But with the Ezekiel, this is going to be so. Oh, here comes Malphite!
Oh my god, Rogue is bet it all in this game.
Here we go!
Rogue.
Oh, that's so big!
Here, Rit. Off to the side. Waiting for vision over the wall. 3-man. Into the 3-man. That's going to be big. Now the Pantheon immediately. The flash bomb. They've survived. Larson on the backside for now, uncontested. But the rest of the team now on the way in. Keep in mind, Baron's been denied, but Odoamne is here. Misfits burning a ton of cooldowns, but that's massive from Vander. The rest of the team buying space. Larson running for the hills, but that's it. The shutdown. Kave has been unleashed, and Misfits running in. Rogue.
Still, though, you could see that overall there was much more indecisiveness from Misfits. They didn't really know when to approach the later game objectives and how to play around this, and Rogue is much more well versed in this, and this is eventually what cost them the game. There was also a moment where Veteo was just in the bot lane farming on Syndra, and he was way too far from his turrets and way too far from any of his teammates, and Rogue saw him there and just collapsed and recognized, okay, in this moment we can take the Baron, and from there on close out the game, which is exactly what they did, so Rogue did end up winning. Then the final game of the day was Fnatic versus Vitality, which was not as close at all. I think, yeah, I don't know what happened to Vitality, but they just, not a single moment in the game looked like they were having any chance against Fnatic. Fnatic did start really well. Bipple was very strong in his lane, and yeah, Shigenda, he picked Gnar into the Renekton, and Whippo made Shigenda realize that this is not something you really want to do, really showing him and teaching him top lane lessons. I think that overall Fnatic was just much stronger. Vitality really had nothing to say in the game, and you know, at 25 minutes into the game, Fnatic had 3 Drakes, they were 14-4 up in kills, and Vitality, yeah, what are you going to do then, right? It's very tough for them to win the game from here, especially when Fnatic is playing so incredibly well and you're not winning team fights. So Fnatic got an easy victory here. Then on day 2, we started off with a pretty slow game. With 4 kills at 22 minutes between Astralis and XL. It really wasn't very exciting. It also felt dry for a while. You know, at 22 minutes, there were like 8 minutes without any kills happening at all. So yeah, from a viewer perspective, it wasn't really exciting for the gameplay. But also, you know, if there are not many kills, but the teams play around each other well, and you could see them trading objectives, that's exciting. But both teams did this pretty poorly as well. It wasn't really anything to write home about. XL did get a small edge over Astralis fairly consistently because Astralis wasn't really using their players well, especially White Knight, as was pointed out on the broadcast as well. Instead of, you know, when he had the opportunity farming so he could get a bit stronger, he was just mostly wandering around with his team who were not doing anything. So yeah, that was a bit... it was a bit of a snooze fest. Towards the end of the game did become a bit more explosive with a few team fights, but the team fights themselves were also very sloppy. Overall, XL was just a little bit cleaner, and I think they got a deserved win of this, but both teams in this game showed that they still have a lot to work on if they want to make it to the playoffs. Then we had SK versus Misfits as the second game of the day. There was a bad start from Misfits. With Rezor dying a few times. Obviously, he had a very good performance last week, but this was definitely not his game. And you could see that this trickled through the match. Overall, obviously, jungle is a very powerful role and very decisive role in the meta at the moment. And if your jungler does well, you could see it just elevates the entire team. But it also works the other way around. And Rezor, yeah, he ran it down a bit, which was sad to see, because it affected all of Misfits and they couldn't really do much about it. That said, though, I have to also give credits to SK Gaming for recognizing that they were in a position where they could capitalize on Misfits' mistakes, which they absolutely did. I think especially Tinks, the jungler for SK Gaming, had a great showing on his Taliyah. And yeah, as I said, the match overall was just not very exciting because Misfits played pretty poorly. You could see Kobe was trying his best. He was doing really well. As a bot laner, you just cannot elevate your team enough in the current state of the game. So SK Gaming got a win, which is very exciting for them, obviously, because they're 4 rookies and getting these wins is a huge boost to their confidence, so props to them. Then we had Vitality versus Rogue. And obviously Rogue just had a close match against Misfits the day before. Vitality got schooled by Fnatic. So expectations were that Rogue were gonna swipe the floor with Vitality. But Vitality actually did start off quite well. They had a few kills. They had a very nice top lane dive on Odo Amne with a good execute. Also, it did help that Inspired did fumble a bit with his Jarvan. He tried to get an extra kill away from the top lane dive. It was a bit messy, but yeah, Rogue fumbled there a bit, and Vitality did it pretty well. But Vitality did not really know how to convert this small lead they had into something more, which is something that you can see for a G2 or a Rogue. If they get a small lead, they are able to capitalize on that and snowball from there. And you could see that Rogue was just pushing in the lanes to try to get that more gold advantage. In the mid lane and the bot lane, they kept on pushing. Larsen and Hansama, as a result, got a lot of gold, got a lot of items. They've been the damage dealers and the carries for the team so far in this meta, in this season overall. And Rogue just took it very slowly. They chipped away at Vitality very meticulously, steadily progressing, taking objectives, not overextending in the fights and risking anything. So with Rogue in the lead, you know, eventually they started to play a bit bolder. And they started taking more fights. And I think a great example of also a bit of redemption for Inspired, who fumbled a bit in the top lane, as I mentioned earlier. But overall in the match, he played really well after this. And he got a bit of redemption, as I said, and with a great engage.
That's pretty much all you can do here. And they did a good job of punishing Rogue earlier on. Now Rogue playing very well with the Fog Forth. This is a classic play from them right around that wall. LeBron not ready for it.
Oh, he is not. There's the Cataclysm goes down, locks in LeBron. Hansama comes in with the ultimate, but there's
flank.
not enough damage just yet. Vitality on the turn. Melita's come in with the Destiny Gold card, but he's blown up, flashes away, does not survive. Trippy goes forward with a Magnet Storm, holds the Vitality in place, but the damage is not there to follow up just yet. Shagenda forced to flash away, and nobody from Rogue can chase him down because they've got their attention on the numbers. Lebrov with the Unbreakable is broken, and Rogue, they managed to smash that.
Yeah, even though this was a great fight from Inspired side and from Rogue side, Rogue didn't really play cleanly overall. They were caught off guard a few times where they were going for some cheeky plays, especially, and this is where Vitality could just punish them. They were in a comfortable enough lead to not let this hamper their victory in the end, but it is definitely something that they maybe should be a bit mindful of going into the next weeks. But yeah, they took it slowly, almost a throwback to Rogue in the summer split last year, and close out the game with relative comfort in the end. Then we had Schalke of here versus G2, which is always going to be a interesting match because Schalke has always had a game won against G2 last year, where it was completely unexpected because Schalke wasn't performing that well. And I think yeah, this was it was just a G2 game. Let's call it that. They got behind early, G2, with Mickey dying twice early on. One time just completely inting an engage without backup from his team. Not sure who made the call there, but it was in the end due to him dying that Schalke got a very early lead. And this was followed by more fights that were pretty messy, but ended up going Schalke's way. Both teams were overcommitting to these fights. It definitely was not something that I would classify as a top tier match, but at least you could see that Schalke and Ophir was feeling more comfortable, and their communication was more on point, which is something that lacked in previous matches, where you could see that, okay, maybe they weren't so sure about when to engage, or maybe they weren't so sure about which objective to go for. And this is something that they absolutely nailed against G2. Even though the execution wasn't always great, G2's was just very poorly overall. G2 had one team fight, I think, where they looked very strong, but Schalke kept finding individual picks on G2, and they just got so many towers. At 25 minutes, G2 had not taken a single tower from Schalke 04, while Schalke 04 had taken several from G2 already. And yeah, G2 just wasn't feeling it, I guess. Normally, you could always say, okay, G2 always has a chance to get back into the game. They did take 3 Drakes back from Schalke 04, but they were so far behind that when it was for Soul Point, that Schalke could just easily corner G2, force them back into the base, and comfortably take the final Drake. And from here, it was just really, hopeless for G2, I think. Very good engages from here on out from Schalke, and they just snowballed G2 out of the game. A highlight moment for me from this game is Broken Blade, who was playing super well on the Aatrox, and we have a little clip of that showing just how well he was playing here.
Hope that Schalke, when they push this top or this bottom lane, maybe overreach, and then their comp can.
Oh, that's an overreach.
Broken Blade will get run down here. Jankos jumps in, gets caught up by the Darkened Blade, gets jumped on.
Whoa!
Broken Blade in a 1v2 takes down Jankos. Wonder gets dismounted, but that healing was ridiculous.
Yeah, that.
Then the final game of the week was Mad Lions versus Fnatic, and I don't think I've seen a fiesta like this in a long time. I think we always hear from teams that in scrims, teams play more aggressively, and on stage they are playing more passively, don't take as many engages, but Mad Lions and Fnatic seem to have a gentleman's agreement that they were just going to go in every engage they could possibly take. The entire game long, and I'm not exaggerating for this, there were fights. There were fights all over the place, there were team fights, and whenever one of the teams seemed to spot each other, they just went in. And this wasn't always very clean. I think you have an example where there was a fight happening in the top lane River, and Armwood was in the top lane attacking the enemy top tower, and he could have gone down to help his team, but he just stuck there. Then there was later on in the fight, in the game, there was a moment where Selfmade tried to set up a gank and a flank on Mad Lions, but Mad Lions just put down a simple Azir tower, and Selfmade's entire plan was in shambles. And I think that this is definitely a game that I cannot really summarize by a general development over the game, because it was very swingy. Both teams kept going in, and especially Fnatic, I think, was the one who should have held back a bit more, or at least try to coordinate their fights better. But it was not the greatest match from Mad Lions either. I think that Mad Lions' savior was Kaiser, who had a phenomenal game on Rel. Obviously, Rel is sometimes a bit of a champion where you press R and hope for your team to follow up, but the way he engaged with Fnatic and the way he set up for his team was really phenomenal. So yeah, if I were to summarize this game, it was just literally a scrim game. It was fun to watch, it was exciting to watch, but not a match I think that both teams can take many positives away from, aside from maybe, you know, their individual mechanics, to say, oh look, this was an incredible mechanical outplay by me here, because that's literally all that happened. They kept fighting the entire time, and it was all over the place. Now, that said, as I said, there were many fights, and players could take away some great moments of individual skill. And something I would like to highlight is a moment where Niski on his Aurelia just showed that he definitely has some talent on the champion.
Picked up for Niski first as well.
Yeah, in particular, that Hourglass Relioya, I love. And we got to play in the bot side 2v2. Let's go.
All right, Niski and Armut are currently trading for the time being. Bwipo joins the fray. Humanoid's got the Emperor's Divide. He's going to need to use it to buy time, and he does. Armut escapes with his life for now.
What?
Niski with the huge outplay. That was ridiculous.
So with that said, let's take a look at the standings in the LEC as they are after week 2. At number 1, we have Rogue, who are yet to be defeated and have a 5-0 score. G2 follows in second place with a 4-1 score. Mad Lions and Shokan of here both had a 3-2 score at the moment. Then we have 4 teams at the 5th place with Fnatic, Misfits, SK, and XL, all at a 2-3 score. And then the final 2 teams that have only gotten 1 win so far in the split, are Astralis and Vitality. Alright, so some general thoughts about the team's performances this weekend. I think Rogue overall played pretty well. Not as well, I would say, as in week 1. Especially in their games against Vitality, that some edges, I think, need to be smoothened out. But yeah, I mean, 5-0, not much to complain about, obviously. Definitely still, at the moment, I think, one of the best teams in the league. Then we have G2, 4-1, obviously. Yeah, it's the second game, the one against Schalke 04. It seems like G2 just needs these games every now and then. They have it every split where they just completely run it down, whether it's draft or poor team communication. It's just them not lining up exactly. They're taking it pretty chill, obviously, but you will see, I think, that next week when they meet Fnatic, they'll be full force back again, full focus. It's just like with Peak, like their focus goes like this, and then they have one in game and they'll bounce back strongly. I have no doubt about this. But overall, of course, the second game was incredibly poor. The first game was a pretty comfortable win against Astralis, though. Then Mad Lions. I was pretty happy with Mad Lions' performance. Getting 2 wins is obviously a good weekend for them. 2-0 should boost a lot of the confidence after going 1-2 with some poor performances last week. I still think that the game against Fnatic was just complete in from both sides, but you could see that Mad Lions was playing a bit better than Fnatic, so there was improvement there from them. I still would think that I would like them to be more controlled going forward. I think they could have won more confidently and more convincingly against Fnatic if they were just more polished and more in line. But overall, it's a step up from them from last week. And Schalke 04, I was obviously very surprised pleasantly by them. I thought that they would have struggles in the split with finding a direction, but it seemed that when it mattered most, which is against G2, I think those victories are the most important ones to get because they are the most uncertain ones. So if you have those, you can have a more comfortable position, knowing that you can maybe also defeat worse teams. So I was very pleasantly surprised by their performance here. And yeah, I think it's a good step up from them. Then Fnatic, who yeah, they went 1-1 in the weekend. Losing against Mad Lions is obviously not something they I don't know. I think there's a lot of lessons for them to learn from that match, especially when it comes to coordinating as a team. They're always a team that takes losses pretty heavily. But yeah, I don't know with this Fnatic team. I think that they did show at the end of last week and in the first match this week that they have a lot of promise in when it comes to bringing this team together. Then they really shine and they played controlled but aggressively. They're playing very well, but it's still too inconsistent how often they manage to do this. And then Misfits. Rough week from them, obviously, after going 2-1, going 0-2 in the weekend after is rough. I still think that they can take positive lessons from how they played against Rogue, because it took Rogue to the absolute limits, which is a very positive thing to look back on. Obviously, the match against SK afterwards was rough, especially for Resorg, but these games happen. I think that as soon as they are able to acknowledge this and just look at how they played against Rogue, especially, and see, okay, what did we do so well there that we managed to push them to the absolute limits, and try to learn from that. I think that there's definitely still hope. I still think that this is a team that I underestimated going into the split, but I think they still have a very real chance of being a solid playoffs team. SK Gaming, good win against Misfits, knowing how to capitalize on any mistakes the opponent makes. Still a lot of growth, I think, for this rookie squad, but what is so positive about getting that win against Misfits is that they can contrast it to their losses and compare, okay, what did we do so well this game and how can we make sure that we do it again in future games. Also, when you have 4 rookies on the team, getting those wins in is very, very, very good to help establish their confidence. And we have XL. Yeah, XL, pretty decent. Went 1-2 and went 1-1 this week. So in that sense, there's a bit of an upward trend with going 33% win rate per weekend to 50%. Let's see if they can get 100% next week and win both matches. But I still think Excel in the later stages of the game just has a lot of trouble figuring out what to do. And that only if their opponent is even worse at knowing what to do, that they can really have an edge there. I still think that their early game is pretty good. I also do have some concerns with how they play through the lane. Obviously, I think Kreis had a pretty good weekend, but mainly still you can see Excel funneling the resources to Patrick, and Patrick is the one who most of the time has to carry this team. So I hope that in the future weeks we can see a bit more of Kreis stepping up and being the carry, so we can have some diverse strategies from Excel. And then we have Astralis. As I said, I think compared to last weekend, they positively surprised me with how they played. I think they played much better as a team. I do still think that White Knight and Promiscu have a lot to show. Nuke Dog was kind of a neutral factor after also not performing so well last week. But yeah, after this weekend, I'd say that Nuke Dog did okay for the team, at least. Not a top tier mid laner by any means, but not somebody holding the team back actively this weekend. But yeah, I think White Knight and Promiscu definitely still have a lot to show and prove that they have a spot rightfully here in the LEC. We have Vitality. I think Vitality, I don't know what's happening to the team. I had them rated pretty highly. I had them at 5th going into the split. I very clearly at the moment seem to have overestimated them massively. Yeah, this team is just not playing well. Labrov died so many times this weekend, it's hard to keep track. Obviously, he is the support player, so sometimes you have to go in and sacrifice yourself for the greater good of the team, but the team didn't seize the moment there. These are all very talented, like young players, so I'm not sure what's going wrong for them within the team, maybe why they're not able to develop, but they're not really showing much progress at all. So yeah, there's a long way for them to go, and at this rate I could see them actually becoming 10th in the league behind Astralis. But the split is still long, so obviously they have some time to redeem themselves. Last summer split we still had the Schalke Miracle run. Who knows what will happen to Vitality. Finally, let's take a look at the LEC SuperFantasy lobby I created, and let's take a look at the top 10 at the moment. So Stepan is there at 1,337 points, the lead number, always fun to see. Witta has 1,260 points. I'm in 3rd place with 1,245. Then we have Noodles with 1,234 points. Loco X follows in 5th place with 1,222 points. Panda Barely is at 1,135. Jun Raiden at 1,053, 1,053 points. Then we have Lucky Reed at 1,043. Just below the 1,000 mark is Faramir with 958 points. And in 10th place is Megito at 952 points. I think this weekend was pretty rough, especially in the second day with many people losing points betting on G2 or Fnatic. But yeah, there were definitely some shuffles here. If you like to play, there's a description in the link below, and join us in the lobby. Thank you very much for watching the LEC recap of this week. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It truly helps. I just reached 1,000 subscribers over the course of last week, and I'm very, very, very thankful for all the support, which helps me continue to make these videos. But of course, many of you will be here also to watch the interviews I do, and I have many interviews to come out this week. So if you do enjoy my content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.